cry. I hope you enjoyed this song. It comes from the heart. Every day I keep hearing people talking about the state of the world daily. Some wondering what is happening. Where do we go from here? No one could foresee. Some say it's the fault of the leaders. They say they're just like oppressors. Some say mismanagement from the damn faulty government. But while they're blaming and blaming, I see more people suffering. Where do we go and how shall we move on? So answer these questions. Why must there be retrenchment among the poor ones who working for few cents to take home to their families? Would someone please tell me why one man could have so much money while the next one day he hungry, trying to survive in his country? And I hear that poor man's cry, how come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come this whole world just going down, down, down? This song, it comes from the heart. Every day I keep hearing people talking about the state of the world daily. Some wondering what is happening. Where do we go from here? No one could foresee. Some say it's the fault of the leaders. They say they're just like oppressors. Some say mismanagement from the damn faulty government. But while they're blaming and blaming, I see more people suffering. Where do we go and how shall we move on? So answer these questions. Why must there be retrenchment among the poor ones who working for few cents to take home to their families? Would someone please tell me why one man could have so much money while the next one day he hungry, trying to survive in his country? And I hear that poor man's cry, how come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me, This whole world just going down, down, down. Every day I walk about, I look east, west, north and south, and what I see in my mind there is still a doubt. I see vagrancy increase, drugs that wouldn't cease, robberies perform just like in the movie. Some say it's the youths of the nation. They say it's total frustration. Some say they're bad, they're a disgrace, and it's so sad. But while they're blaming and blaming, I hear the youth saying something they can't get over. The qualifications are like a joke. So answer more questions. Why drugs take over the city? You know we can't find no cure for me, and we can't find no cure that I could see. Would someone please tell me why food prices keep rising, nurses and teachers keep on resigning? You know abroad, most of them running, and I hear that poor man's cry. How come? Tell me how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? Every day I keep praying, night and morning, that things got changed just to end this suffering. I hear Satan say has to be a bed, and who not mad say they rather dead. But living here, they find it is too damn dread. Some people turn big refugee. They say they can't live in the country. Gone to Canada, Brooklyn, Washington, D.C. But while they're blaming and blaming, I see more hard times coming. I see more problems facing me and we children. So answer more questions. Why? When you're looking at Parliament, you have to feel it's a movie that you rent. The behavior is so indecent. Would someone please tell me why? Every corner that I meet, I see single mothers on the street begging for something for their children to eat. And I hear that poor man's cry. How come? Tell me how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me how come? Oh, how come this whole world just going down, down, down? How come? Stop this suffering. How come? Stop all this grunting. How come? Just tell me how come? How come? Stop the promising. How come? Stop all the lying. How come? Just tell me how come? unity to build back our country. How come? Just tell me how come? How come? How come? Oh, how come? Just tell me how come. Good night, Grenada.
How come? How come? With all due respect to all the musical forms that mankind has created, the calypso is the greatest music in the world. There's no other musical form that can tell a story like that. Thank God for us Caribbean people. That music came out of the bowels of the plantation. How come? How come? Evelyn Orr, one of the lesser known names in Calypso, she burst onto the scene in the early 90s. And her first season with that song, How Come, she came second. She was just a 22-year-old kid. Such wisdom. She eventually left Calypso and went into gospel music, as some of our singers have done. You think about the late Dennis Plummer, who just passed away, leaving Calypso. We think about Calypsonian who sung "No, no, we ain't going home." No, all you remember that? All you remember that? Herbert. He's now into gospel music. Carlene Davis, "Still in Love." She's now singing "Still in Love" for Jesus. So Evelyn Orr was certainly one of the brightest light to come on the scene, and she had a good run, and then she went over into gospel music, having become a born-again Christian. But how come? She's asking the question. And she paints the portrait of our Caribbean then and now. It's as if she was speaking to Guyana. How come? She paints a portrait of the poor man, the challenges, the poverty. How come? Well, that is part of what we're about. How come? Tonight, our guest is going to be Dr. Vincent Adams. He was here last week, and he's back this week. And we're going to try to figure out how come. We're going to be asking some questions. How come? How come? How come with all the oil money, poor people still scrunting on the streets? How come with all the oil money, teachers and nurses still live in Guyana? How come with all the oil money, public servants still taking home a little pay? How come with all the oil money, some people get plenty and the workers got nothing? How come with all the oil money, our people coming out of school with plenty subjects and can't find a work? How come? And our leaders are fooling themselves, because I don't think they're fooling us. And they're going overseas and trying to fool people. How come? The president went overseas after Rickford Burke announced the conference coming up next Wednesday and Thursday. He went overseas and was regaling the Americans about how beautiful Guyana is. But we are going to Washington to answer for the Americans some of the questions easily or raised in that calypso. How come so much oil money and the teachers have to be absenting themselves from school this past week just to get a 20% raise on a $90,000 salary? How come? How come you walking around Georgetown and still see beggars, women, children? How come? How come the roads in Boston, as we saw 2 days ago, all of them, not some of them, all of them are in a terrible state? How come? And that's what we are going to Washington this week to answer and to tell the Americans how come. To tell the Americans that mistake you made in 2020, when in pursuit of your economic and political interests, you chose a contestant over other contestants. You modified it later on because you said the government is in power as a result of a disputed election, and you said they were installed, but the damage was already done. And so we go to Washington to say to you, we want no more regime change in Guyana. What we want is regime correction. How come? And one of the persons going to Washington is Dr. Vincent Adams. He has been toiling in the wilderness, in the valleys, warning us about oil and gas. How come $214 million that Exxon built and suddenly it gone down to $3 million? How come? How come? We got to get together, all of us, answer those questions, and in the process of answering those questions, correcting the wrongs. I made it very clear to you all, I am not in favor of regime change to overthrow the PPP. I am not in favor of that. That is a domino thing. You regime change one, and then regime change becomes normative. We are not interested in regime change. We are interested in a change of government to be replaced by a government that will transform our country so that we would not have any reason for regime change again. But we have to correct the wrongs. Don't tell me about attempted rigged election. Yes, you're saying that there was an attempt to rig the election in 2020. What you are not saying is that there was actual rigging, PPP style, that was unearthed when the boxes were opened. And we are going to Washington to remind the Americans of that. That one side said there was an attempt. And you, Mr. America, and others pushed the government out of power based on an allegation. But you ignored evidence of rigged election, not attempt, real rigging. I heard Dominic Gaskin, who I still consider to be a decent man. He was on a show the other night, and he said he felt that Mingo's numbers weren't adding up. So he said the PPP won. When he was asked about what came out of the boxes, he said he didn't believe that the anomalies that showed up when the boxes were open were enough to change the result of an election. A close election. Dominic is a sensible boy. Dominic conceded that from where he was sitting, he believed the PPP. When they say that what Mingo was putting out didn't go with their SOPs, Dominic believed them. But when Dominic was confronted with actual rigging, because he opened his mouth too early, he couldn't walk it back and say, I was wrong. This is where the rigging occurred. He said the rigging that he see was not enough to change the outcome. How you know that, Dominic? In an election that is for, but in any case, Dominic, even if when the boxes were opened, it showed one vote that was tampered with, that is rigging. I'm not going to make them forget that. So we're going to Washington. Not to ask the Americans to overthrow the PPP as the PPP did. They went to Washington and asked them to overthrow the previous government. We're not into that. At least I'm not into that. The party that I belong to, the WPA, not into that. But we want the Americans to correct the mess that was made by the mistake. Mistake. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Let's bring in our guest right away. My brother.
Hey, my brother, how are you doing?
I'm feeling warm tonight.
I tell you what, you really warm me up. My heart is still pounding, and I'm still, that song. I don't know where you find these tunes from, but I've got to get. I am going to be going to look for that song. You talk about an inspiration. I have got to find that song, Dr. Hines. My skin is still glowing from it. And it's just as if she's telling the story. And you said she sang that in 1990 something.
1990.
Is she a CFAR person? What? Oh goodness! I tell you I haven't heard anything like that in a long time. And this year is you couldn't find another song more appropriate.
Yes, and that is why I said, I love music of all kinds, especially our music. But calypso to me is still the greatest music that mankind has produced. So, Dr. Adams, you're going to Washington.
Absolutely. You know what's so funny about this? That time, and when I see Rick Ford, I've got to say here, this guy is a genius. The publicity that he got, he's got a new recipe and a new, hey, all you've got to do apparently, and Rick Ford figured it out. All you've got to do is piss off the vice president.
Yes.
And it brings attention to and it backfires on him. And now I cannot believe how Bork has an entire government custering. They're just like if they're Basili, the whole government. Without Rick Ford, they probably wouldn't have been running to Washington with almost their entire cabinet. And now even that has backfired because now the same Congressional Black Caucus has said, well, okay, if I'm going to meet with the cabinet, I need to be meeting with the opposition. So these guys, whatever, with Barrett going out there and just lambasting Rick Ford every day, calling him a criminal. Which government pays so much attention, Dr. Hines, to criminal and somebody who should be in jail I have never seen anything like this. Here it is. This guy who's supposed to be this biggest criminal who should be in jail, and he's got them cussing, and they're just running after him, and they're even bringing more attention to his conference. They probably need to get rid of their PR form, because I know, but it's interesting. So I'm looking forward to this conference to highlight and bring the truth to the people.
So, Dr. Adams, what is the significance of a conference like this? I mean, you've lived in the United States, you've walked the halls of power in terms of your profession, your craft. What a conference like this does for a country like Guyana?
Well, especially for the folks who live in Guyana, the politicians really don't care, because they're in power. They really don't care. You and I get up here and we criticize and we call them names. They really don't care. They believe that they've got all the votes behind. The only thing that they understand, it's when the superpowers, however they got into office, the only thing they understand is when the superpowers start paying attention. And you see, the other thing that they had in their favor, of course, is that they felt that through the U.S. Embassy, they had all the U.S. support. So this year, I think was a very, a very thoughtful move on the part of Mr. Bork and whoever else has been advising him, that we need to get to the people who might have interest. For example, the Congressional Black Caucus, somebody like Mr. Jeffries, the highest ranking Black official in the government, on the opposition side. So, and he's got a constituents in New York, for example. So when his constituents starts asking questions, so we need to. So I think that they say on the part of Rickford Bork was a master stroke in terms of trying to equalize the whatever opinions might be out there, and to make sure that these people understand, and it's working. It is working, as you can tell. First of all, Mr. Jaglio used to get on there, and as a matter of fact, he threatened all of those who who decided that they want to go. And I got calls the very same night, Dr. Hines, and some of my friends tell me it doesn't matter if they've got to crawl now, even if they weren't thinking of going, even if they got to crawl to get there, they're gonna go there because of these threats that he's making. So I think it's to enlighten the congressman, because I don't know what was being fed through the embassy, and what the impression that were being given to them. But no, it's a face-to-face. It's one-on-one, and let the chips fall where it may.
Let the chips fall where it may. Washington, here we come next week, Wednesday and Thursday, to make our case to America and to the world, and by extension to sound warning to the government of Guyana that we are going to take matters in our hands and answer the questions that Evelyn Orr asked in that calypso that we played, and that I'm sure from the comments saying how moved you are. We heard singing Sandra, singing Voices from the Ghetto here a couple of weeks ago, but I think this song, the Poor Man's Cry by Evelyn Orr, she's from Tobago. Little known name, but was big at the time. How come? Dr. Adams, how come Exxon produced an audit on Exxon, produced $214 million in expenses, and suddenly it gone down to $3 million? The government says they're going to mount an investigation. First of all, explain what is $214 million about, and then take it from there.
Well, I've got to start out with Massa Rutledge, most recent statement today, that somehow he was acting in good faith. You know, this here is just sheer I pass to the people of Guyana. If this was in the United States, this guy could not have been uttering that kind of insulting, making those type of insulting statements. But he knows what he's dealing with, and he's got all the confidence that there's not going to be any pushback from the government. Here's how this audit work anyway. For him to say that this here is acting in good faith. Over 3 years now, this audit has been going on. That's not acting in good faith when you're not even providing the documentation. So here is, I'll let get to get rid of all of the nonsense. When you do an audit, Dr. Hines, and by the way, I've been in charge of audit teams. I've been on the other side of audits. I've been official who sign off, who had to sign the official documents and audits. So I know how audits are conducted in the United States with companies like Exxon. So he knows what he's supposed to be doing. When you start an audit, during the audit process, you get exports. If I'm an expert on drilling or I'm an expert on finance, we're the ones, or on procurement, you get the team, the experts on both sides to sit one-on-one or two-on-two. The teams sit together to discuss those technical issues, the way the experts exchange. And then the questions are asked by these experts. So it's segmented. That's when all the questions are asked and all of the documents are supposed to be provided. If you cannot provide those documents during those sessions, that means it doesn't exist. You can't tell me that you're going to be running an operation like this and you cannot provide documents. That means it didn't exist. So when the report is written, when the draft report is written and it's sent out, there shouldn't be any surprises. All you do when the report goes to the contractor now is for them to check for accuracy in terms of numbers or to finesse the language. It has nothing to do with documents and those type of stuff because it's already been asked for. You were supposed to have provided it before, so you can't come after afterwards and say, well, okay, you're providing documents. That's what he's saying, that they're acting in good faith because, and this thing cannot take 3 years for you to be providing documents. It's Exxon you're dealing with. So, and then you hear now there's going to be an investigation. Now, does anybody really? I mean, these people have to stop trying to make fools out of the Guyanese people. Does anybody really believe an investigation means anything with the government conducting an investigation of itself, that's going to come out with anything that is going to make any sense at all? And have, I mean, let's look at the NRF, for example. Who they appointed to. They did not even take the government officials, not the government, the opposition recommendation, because the opposition was supposed to put 2 people on the NRF. They rejected the 2 people. It was Christopher Ram, myself, and then Elson Lowe. 2 out of the 3. They rejected also. I'm not even, because they wanted their own people in all of these committees. So don't expect that some independent investigation team is going to incorporate or have people with a fair mind. It's going to be all government set up. So don't try to fool people. So let me talk about what does this 214 million mean. And the first thing is, here you've got the IMH market team. This is an internationally renowned company that has a reputation to protect. They're not going to go out there and do anything stupid to start with. They're powerful. They're an international team. What the government wants people to believe, that this company, it's 100% wrong, because they're not even saying, well, okay, it's not 214, guys. It's 150, or it's half, or it's even it's 3 million, which means that it's almost 100% that is wiped out. So it means then that this big international, very credible team is 100% wrong. And on top of that, the GRA, which approved the document, is also 100% wrong. And then you want to blame it on some, some lower level employees. You want to make them the scapegoat. Does anybody really believe that people in any ministry, knowing how this government operates, is going to go ahead and be making these major decisions? And does anybody believe that Exxon is going to, decide that they're taking directions from some lower level folks? I mean, this here, and especially working for somebody like a Jaglio, that you're going to make a decision with a man who always has his thumbs, on every single thing, and does not give any of his technical people an opportunity. So that's what we're dealing with. Here's what this 214 million means to poor people in Guyana. Because remember, we would have had 107 out of the 214 because because of the 50-50 split. And if you just do a back of the envelope calculation, that could have put 100,000 Guyana dollars in every single household pocket. Every single household could have gotten 100,000. But let's, as a technical person, you don't just look at everything by itself. If you look at all of the projects that have been approved and the one that is in the pipeline, so the 6th project, it adds up to $55 billion US. The first 6 projects, $55 billion US. So let's take that 13% error. And by the way, Dr. Hines and the listener, this here was the easiest audit you can find, because this audit, you hadn't even produced a barrel of oil. So you don't get into all these complications when you start drilling and you got subcontractors all over the place. And, this here is as simple as you can get. So the
$214 million is what? Is a bill from...
Here's what it is.
Yes.
It's an audit. What is it? The 1.6. They're saying the cost of everything that they did from the time they signed the contract,
1999,
before they start drilling. So that's the pre-cost.
Yes.
So now they submit that to Guyana. So Guyana has to verify that cost. And that's part of the contract. We've got to come and certify, which is why I said that contract should have thrown into the trash a long time ago. But anyway, because we have no capacity to verify anything. Okay. Anyway, so they say that cost added up to, I think it was 1.4 or 1.6 billion? I can't remember.
1.
But anyway,
1.6
billion. So now, by the way, here's the other key point. The previous administration, the coalition, decided early that the coalition doesn't have the expertise. So they went out and got this company, an international
British
company. Whereas on the other hand, the PPPC government does not want to do any audit. You remember they allowed the time to expire and all kinds of stuff. So you've got to give credit to the coalition for going out there proactively to do the audit before the time expires. So that's the first thing, is that it came from the coalition that you must do this audit. So now you got to verify that cost. Well, what happens now? They said, well, okay, it's not $1.6 billion. What the bills that you submitted, you have submitted over, the cost is like $214 million over. You've got to show us the bill for that $214 million. And you've got to justify the cost for, you tell us that this thing is cost. Where is this $214 million? Show me the justification and the receipts for this $214 that for $214 million. That is all part of this cost. They can. So that's where the problem is. So let's say we go ahead, because that's probably where we're heading. If that $214 wasn't there, or if we had the, if we didn't get it, then let's assume it doesn't exist. That means that we would have saved on the Guyana side $107 million, and of course Exxon would have saved $107 million. Okay, but remember, I mean, I could see where they wouldn't even be saving anything, because remember, all your subcontractors and everything belong to the same company sometimes. Okay, but that $107 million that we may have to pay out of our pocket that we shouldn't be paying, that's the issue. And that's why I'm saying it could have put $100,000 in every single household pocket. But let's assume now this 13%. And by the way, this 13% difference is it's a low number. Okay, I have seen study where it said it should be normally like closer to 25%. But let's assume we take that 13%. The first 6 projects adds up to $55 billion US dollars. Let's assume, even though these new projects, the probability is that if they continue like this, it's going to be higher than that 13% because it's much more complicated. But let's take the 13%. If you take 13% of that $55 billion in error, it adds up to over $7-point-something billion. So it's not 214 million anymore, it's 7.5 for the top 6 projects, the first 6 projects, if we continue with this pattern, especially if you don't do proper audits. And even when you do audits, you're pushing back. So if you take that 7-point-something billion, every single Guyanese, and you work the math, every single Guyanese would have been robbed $3 to $4 million. 3 to 4 million Guyana dollars. So when you hear the vice president and everybody say, well, $1 million, it would take up all the money revenues that we get. You remember when Dr. Thomas is advocating for the million? Oh, that's impossible. It's gonna take up all. Well, here it is. Just by saving on the overcharges, you can take care 3 to 4 times that amount. So that is what we would be giving away. It would go as waste, and basically goes into Exxon's pocket, and the people of Guyana would be losing. That is why these audits are important, and what's even more important is that they must be done by reputable companies. We don't have the capacity. GRA doesn't have the capacity, no fault of theirs. So the coalition decided to go with this big international reputable company. So that's what it is. So that's the implication and the seriousness of this audit, because it doesn't stop here. And for our leaders to just want to accept it. Dr. Hines, you don't have to be a scientist and a mathematician and engineer. Here's your government. Your people are saying your GRA that you're supposed to is 214 million. And then suddenly you're going to go and accept, suddenly it's 3 million. It goes from 214 million to 3 million. And you are going to accept it, even though it's short-changing your country. But you just accept it. And then now you're coming and blaming the low-level employee. You think anybody come to you? Just imagine you're leading this country, and somebody comes to you and you're expecting, well, my people are telling me it's $240 million, and suddenly I'm hearing it's 3 million. Aren't you gonna really want to know what the heck is going on here, rather than going out on the airwaves and start saying, well, it's willy-nilly, it's not 214, it's now 11, and then suddenly it's 3. But because the pressure, that's what's causing all of it. If people were not speaking out, this thing would have been in old news. As a matter of fact, the other key point to understand, remember that this was not even brought to the public by the government. It was because of a document that was leaked. That's how we know about this 240 million, or else we probably would have never known about it. And Exxon would have probably paid come up with, say, well, okay, it's only 3 million difference, and that was what it was going to be.
Dr. Vincent Adams here, laying it out and showing how our government, our government is allowing foreign companies to rob us hand over fist. I always say, we should not be surprised that multinational corporations are in the business of profit. You're trying to make profit at all costs. You cut every corner, but our government, that's why we elect the government. That is why we have the GRA, the EPA, and all these organizations that are there, organizations of the state that are there to tell us how come.
And Dr. Hank, let me add quickly here, because this is not a one-off thing, okay? This here is a pattern, okay? And we know what some of the other issues are. The unlimited liability coverage if there is a spill. When I was at EPA, we put into the permits that Exxon has to cover everything over and above whatever that insurance is. The Judge Kissoon rule, as a matter of fact, the government went against our own regulations that we put in there. Exxon had already agreed, because the coalition, we told them that they'd already agreed to it. As soon as I left, they threw that into the trash, and Exxon, well, of course, that's why they were taking the court. The judge ruled in their favor. So those are and it's only because Exxon is saving money. Dumping of water into the ocean, produced water, which has oil in it, it has radioactivity, it has toxic chemicals such as lead, mercury. It is very hot, like 3 times the ocean water, and we're dumping that water in the ocean when the international standards, the World Bank standard, call for re-injecting that water from where it came. I worked in for 6 years. I was on these rigs and as a reservoir engineer, and I have never heard of water being dumped in the ocean. It goes re-injected back into the reservoir. When I asked them, when they brought that nonsense to me, and I asked them what's the reason, they said, well, it's cost. I said, well, what does it cost to put the equipment on the ship? They said $300 million. Which is, I don't believe it, but I said, I don't care. You're going to make what, hundreds of billions of dollars, and you're going to tell me that the lives and health of the people of Guyana is not worth $300 million? So they never brought it up again. And they were supposed to, so when I left, they were supposed to redesign the ships to put those equipment on board the ship. And that didn't come from me alone. We had a team of the EPA, of the U.S. Department of Energy under Dr. Bino, and the GGMC, and their own consultant that they brought in from Canada, Alistair Redford. We all had, that was the directions we gave to Exxon. When we left, they removed it. We put it in the Payara. They removed it completely in the subsequent documents. Even the capping stock that I hear the vice president brags about, that now it's in Guyana. We put in the Payara permit that capping stock, and the capping stock is, if you recall, in the Macondo spill, the well flowed for like 89 days. So the capping stock was something that was invented, a big heavy piece of equipment, 50 to 100 tons, to put on top of the well when the flow starts. So the quicker you can get it to the well, the better. We put into the Payara that it had to be 3 days. Do you know what they removed that 3 days, and what they put 9 days, to put the country at risk for another 6 days of oil gushing into the Gulf? And then, of course, there's no permit, there is no liability coverage, parent company guarantee to cover it if we have a spill. The other thing is, we've got a highly substandard spill response plan that, when I was at EPA, the EPA of all people refused to sign that document that was developed by the Civil Defense Commission, because the document was basically useless. And so those are the things. And then they're even producing, they're enhancing the risk of a spill by producing illegally above the operating limit. On the Lisa 1, it says specifically that the safe operating limit, Dr. Hines, the safe operating limit is 120,000 barrels per day. Do you know what they're producing at on the Lisa 1? 155,000 barrels per day. If that is not reckless and lawlessness and putting the entire Caribbean at risk, I don't know what is. So they're violating those type of things to cause a spill. Then the spill response plan is not worth anything. And then on top of that, when you get a spill, you don't have coverage to clean up the spill. They put this paltry $2 billion. Do you know the which is what was agreed to after Judge Kissoon's verdict, that is now in appeal, that the government itself appealed against its own people. How more callous could you be? But anyway, so there's nothing to cover that cost. I ask them all the time, that $2 billion, what happens when that cost goes over $2 billion? Suppose it's $145 billion, it would run Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean bankrupt. Did I lose you, Dr. Hines?
No, I'm here.
Oh, yes, because, and it's not only Guyana, Dr. Hines, it's the entire Caribbean would be washed away. Trinidad, the entire north, from north to south of Trinidad would be gone. Even Venezuela. And if you want to create even more tension with Venezuela, you flood their coast with oil. Then there would be real excuses. So those are the kinds, and the only reason we're doing those things, Dr. Hines, is because Exxon wants it that way to save money. It's about greed. So we have leadership here that has no interest in its people. It's only, Exxon could not ask for a better government than the Guyana government. Have you ever heard recently, have you seen Exxon even going on the media and saying anything for themselves? No, because they've got a mouthpiece of the government. Flaring. Another thing that the coalition did was to ban flaring. We said absolutely no flaring. We put it in the permit. They went and changed the permit and now is allowing Exxon to flare unlimited quantities as long as they pay a little fine, and they're making 30 times the amount of money they're paying for the fine just by flaring. So those are the kinds of things that are happening. We have no representation by this government, and then and it really, let me tell you, it really angers me when I see the vice president gets up there and just flat out lie about, especially the environmental thing, that they've strengthened the environment compared to the coalition. I mean, that's such a blatant lie that it's just unbelievable. But that's what's going on, and those are facts. I want any of them to don't just come out and say we've strengthened the environment, which is what I've asked them to do several times in the media. Let us go one by one. Tell me how you've strengthened the environment with flaring. Tell me how you strengthened the environment with dumping of water. Those are the key points. They cannot do it. They cannot do it.
They cannot do it, Dr. Vincent Adams. Those of you in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, we're coming there for that conference on Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday, Brother Kadaki and I would be at the Grave Cafe, 1200 East West Highway, Silver Spring, Maryland. I remember that joint well. The Grave Cafe, owned by Guyanese. We will have a meet and greet there on Friday night. So all you Maryland, Virginia, DC people in the house, Kadaki, Amsterdam, and I would be at the Grave Cafe, 1200 East West Highway on Friday night, next week Friday, like this, for a meet and greet. Come out and get an update from us on what's happening in Guyana, and let's meet and greet and talk about our issues in Guyana. Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. If you're in Baltimore, it's just down the road. Come next week, Friday. Come to the conference. And then next week, Friday, let's meet and greet at the Grave Cafe. Dr. Vincent Adams here with us tonight, really cranking it up and telling us about what is going on behind the scenes. You know, this oil and gas thing is a big cash cow for them, but we are not going to allow them to get away with it. We are going to use all the expertise at our disposal. To the Dr. Adams.
Yes, sir.
We had statements from the Vice President and the Executive Director of the EPA about using satellite to remotely obtain independent oil measurements and environmental monitoring. Now, to laymen and like me and lay women, it sounds nice. Talk to us. Talk to us.
Yeah, that's the embarrassing part, is that, you know, the EPA is supposed to be the technical voice, and of course the vice president, the guy believes that he's everything. He's a Mr. Know-it-all, and he doesn't know the sad part. He doesn't know anything that he speaks about. So this whole satellite thing, you know, that's the new buzzword for them now. It sounds really technical, and you know. So the first of all, the vice president says, you know, when Glenn Lal and others were saying, hey, you don't have a meter, an independent meter, he comes out, and I don't know where these guys get these things from, because no technical person that is worth anything would be telling him this nonsense. Said, well, the Exxon is setting up an operations center onshore, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna tap in to their cable, you know, and be able to into their fiber optic cable, and be able to have an independent reading. Hell, the fiber optic cable only gives you what you know they put in on the ship. You know, fiber optic cable is not an independent reading. The meter on the ship is what reads whatever it is, and then the fiber optic cable would transmit the data. Fiber optic cable cannot give you, you know, give you an independent reading. So here is what they're trying to escape. They're trying to escape the fact that when I was at EPA, we recognized that. We went out and decided we had to get people on board the ship. All we needed to do is to make sure that the meter is not a cable. It's the meter is running right and it's accurate, so that for every 100 barrels that come out, we get our 14.5 barrels, as low as it is. But you've got to make sure that the meter is running right, because those meters can have errors. 1%, 5%, 10% probably. So just imagine if you're dealing with billions of barrels, you know, 1% itself, you know, you're also dealing with billions of dollars. So you have to make sure the meter is right. So what we had at the EPA is to have people on board the ship. Went to the World Bank. The World Bank helped us develop a team of specialists with a 36-member team of highly skilled petroleum engineers with at least 5 to 10 years experience that we were going to go higher. So that plan was there. So when I left, now when I started talking about this plan, they threw it away. They said that I was dreaming this stuff up. And then, of course, the front cover of the plan, the World Bank plan, appeared on the front page of the newspapers. So when the newspapers asked the minister, well, you know, you said that Dr. Adams was making this stuff up. Here it is. He said, well, you know, I think you got to talk to the executive director of the EPA. When they asked the executive director of the EPA, he said, well, I wasn't there when it happened. So they threw that plan away. So I'm now bringing up this nonsense about a satellite. Dr. Hines, you have to have people on board that ship 24/7. And not only to make sure that the meters run. And by the way, the only thing that you need to make sure that those meters run correctly, we've got good mechanics, we've got good electricians, and really good technicians to calibrate those meters to make sure that they're running correctly. We do not know if those meters are running correctly. So you have to have people on board the ship. And another reason why you need people on board the ship is to make sure that all of the work that they're doing, the environmental process, the permits are all their activities, they're following the permits that was issued to them. So you're going around behind them to walk to make sure that the valves are properly open to prevent a spill. Then you hear this stupid nonsense from the executive director about we're monitoring. We don't need somebody to be on the ship. We're monitoring with these satellites. And we can see any sheen. It doesn't matter how small it is, right? Now, think about it. You've got this satellite from the sky taking pictures on the ocean floor, and you can see any. Hell, it so happened that part of one of my forte was remote sensing, which is, satellite interpretation was part of that. So I knew, when I was looking at this, I almost fell out of my chair when I was reading this kind of nonsense. And on top of that, Dr. Hines, even that doesn't make sense because any EPA or environmental regulator, your first mission in life is to prevent a spill. The way you prevent it is to have people on board, like I said, to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do to prevent the spill. You don't put up satellite to detect a spill after it occurred. That's too late. It's to prevent the spill. So those are the kind of nonsense. Now remember, this is the same guy just a couple of months ago that went over to West Demerara in a public meeting when they were discussing the gas to shore, the gas plant, the big gas plant. Dr. Hines, I'm not making this up. You can go back and look at it. You know what he told the public? He told the public because the question was, why aren't you doing an EIA, an environmental impact assessment, which is the Bible, the guiding Bible of the industry. Anytime you're doing a big project, you have to do an EIA to identify the risk, and it tells you how to mitigate the risk and what actions to put in place, etc. if a risk occurred. He tells the audience that if you do an EIA for that plant, then you have to do an EIA for every single car that he drives around in Georgetown. So he's comparing the emissions from a gas plant of that magnitude to the emissions of a car, an automobile car. Now you tell me, is this a responsible statement from somebody who's supposed to be heading the protection of our environment? You're going to equate the emissions from an automobile, a car, to the emissions from that humongous gas plant that is supposed to be building at West Demerara. So, these are the kinds of things, after a while you say, well, what else could you expect? And every time you think that it can get worse, it gets worse.
It gets worse. Dr. Vincent Adams. Dr. Adams, I want you to comment on the convert to Black people suffering and reparations and so forth. Convert or hypocrisy. But before you answer that, let's take in a little bit more of Easlin or outcome.
About the state of the world daily, some wondering what is happening. Where do we go from here? No one could foresee. Some say it's the fault of the leaders. They say they're just like oppressors. Some say mismanagement from the damn faulty government. But while they're blaming and blaming, I see more people suffering. Where do we go and how shall we move on? So answer these questions. Why must there be retrenchment among the poor ones who working for few cents to take home to their families? Would someone please tell me why one man could have so much money while the next one day he hungry, trying to survive in his country? And I hear that poor man's cry, how come? Tell me how come? Oh, Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come this whole world just going down, down, down? Every day I walk about, I look east, west, north, and south, and what I see in my mind there is still a doubt. I see vagrancy increase, drugs that couldn't cease, robberies perform just like in the movie. Some say it's the youths of the nation. They say it's total frustration. Some say they're bad, they're a disgrace, and it's so sad. But while they're blaming and blaming, I hear the youth saying something. They can't get no work. The qualifications are like a joke. So answer more questions. Why drugs take over the city? You know we can't find no cure for me, and we can't find no cure that I could see. Would someone please tell me why food prices keep rising, nurses and teachers keep on resigning? You know abroad, most of them running, and I hear that poor man's cry. How come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down?
Beautiful, beautiful,
How
beautiful.
come our country just going down? How come all this money we getting from oil? How come African Guyanese are doing so well? Yet when you go into African Guyanese communities, the roads are terrible. How come? Dr. Adams, talk to us. Talk to us.
Well, I think that is why, just to use MP Manzo Walton words, you got to watch them. You got to watch them, Dr. Hines, and you got to listen to them and judge them by their deeds rather than what they say. Isn't this the same guy and his government that has cut off or threatened? I don't know what's the status of the case, but because I know you're involved, Ipadaji's money, the black organization, are they the same ones who cut funding away that y'all had to go to court to try to get the money? Isn't it the same government under the same president who has gotten rid of these, reports said thousands of black employees from the government, even at the EPA, which, by the way, Dr. Hines, the manager, the previous manager, Rod Henson, which is a much more decent person than this Master Rutledge guy, because he has no respect for anybody. Rod Henson used to tell me all the time. He said, Vince, do you realize that you have the most important agency in this country? Everything has to pass through you. The entire economy passes through you. Every single operation, they have to come to you first to get your permit. He respected us for that. And now they've emasculated the agency. When I arrived there, Dr. Hines, it was an agency that all I heard from the staff, it was dysfunctional. People would come to work anytime. Nobody cared anything. And this was under the same executive director that they brought back. We did not even know how many operations we had, Dr. Hines. We did not even have a filing system. We had over 600 permits that had expired, some over 15 years. He wasn't even spending the few bucks that we were getting from the. We fixed all of that while I was there. We had a single vehicle, Dr. Hines, to run the whole country, so there wasn't any monitoring. When I left there, we had like 8 new brand vehicles for the people to go out there and do their monitoring. We collected over about $150 million in back fees from these permits. So these vehicles and hiring a new staff, qualified staff to do the monitoring and oversight, all of that was taken care of. So when you hear that, and guess what happened when I left? As soon as I left, and between the time I left and now, what happened to black employees? We had 16, the top 16 positions, the most senior positions, 16 of them, directors and everybody. Out of those, we had 9 black employees, which comported with the percentage of black employees. We had about 54 black employees in the agency. So that was almost exactly, the number of high level, so we had a really good representative. You know what has happened since I left, Dr. Hines? Out of those 9 black employees, they've gotten rid of 6 of them.
Wow.
6 of them, and they can't deny that. That's a fact. And including Dr. Hines, because we didn't have the capacity in Guyana. And I'm talking about these are black employees who went abroad to study. All of them got their master's degree. On top of that, I brought in a guy who had 30 years experience here working in the United States, 30 years with the EPA. Another guy who was health and safety. Another black guy came home working, to give back to his country. 6 out of those 9, they demoted, and then they wanted to cut their salary. So those who they didn't renew their contract, they demoted them. So they frustrated them, so they left. But on top of that 6, Dr. Hines, on top of that 6, they got rid of the young, bright East Indian lawyer, one of the most brilliant young lawyers that I have ever had the opportunity to supervise. I compare him to any lawyer, even in the young lawyer, even in the United States. They got rid of him as soon as I left. Guess why? Because he was standing up to Exxon. He was the one who even took Exxon to court when we told them that we're gonna fine them for them not to be paying. They had some little spills. He took them to court. They got rid of him. So when you hear this, this thing about, you would swear that this president has now come the reincarnation or the second coming of coffee. He's suddenly fighting for the slaves and talking about reparations. Judge him by his deeds.
That's right.
Fund the Padaji. Did I pronounce the Padaji correctly?
Yes, you got it right.
Stop getting rid of black people. Stop this empty rhetoric about to impress me. But here's what's happening here, Dr. Hines. It's their PR company that they're spending a lot of money from their PR company in the United States or wherever that is crafting this rhetoric for them to go there and try to fool people. But we're not stupid, Dr. Hines.
No, we're not.
We're not
and Dr. Adams,
we're not stupid.
You have a fan here. My grandson, who was listening to the program, told me he want to say hi to that guy that is speaking there. Say hi to Dr. Adams.
Hey, hi there, young Hines. He's learning. It looks as if he's learning to take over your job there. Some
yes. Tell the audience what's your name. Speak up, Amiri.
My name is Amiri and I live in Guyana.
I didn't hear that.
But your name is what?
Amiri.
And you're from which country? Guyana?
Oh, here we might be looking, Dr. Hines. We might be looking at the future president.
Yes. I'm babysitting, so he's been he's been listening to the program. Then he told me he want to come over and meet you.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I feel honored. I feel honored.
Okay, Ellery.
So that's the story, Dr. Hines. So don't come and pull these type of stunt. We're not stupid, Dr. Hines, and that's the thing. They really do believe that we're stupid.
Yes. Dr. Vincent Adams here tonight.
The other thing quickly, Dr. Hines.
Yeah.
Since we are on that topic, and I listened to my good friend Retty Meyer on that was so informative, because he brought up some things even related to this discussion we are having here with the police force and the GDF, that you claim, well, we were having a balance. Well, some things that he brought out there. Well, if you want a balance in that, why not have? Where's the balance in the for immigration? Haiti, for example, they cut out all the immigration stuff for Haiti and from Africa. They cut out all the immigrants who were coming there, and now they're emphasizing and only advocating for immigrants coming from India. I have no problems with hell. There might be some of my relatives, as you know, I'm half Indian. My mother is Indian.
Right.
But that's not the issue. I would be glad if some of my relatives could come. I would love to welcome them. Of course, I also I'm sure I have relatives from somehow in the genes there from Africa too. It's about fairness. So don't come and tell us that this here is about balance when you don't care about other things that you're not balancing.
Dr. Vincent Adams. Dr. Adams, thank you very much for coming on to Politics 101 tonight, and God spare life, most likely I'll see you next week. I'll be in Washington, D.C., so I'll be doing the show from Washington, D.C., but I will see you in Washington, D.C. At the conference. Thank you very much.
Text me the lady, the Calypsonian name and the song. I'm gonna go look on YouTube. I think I could probably find it there.
Yes, you'll find it right there on YouTube.
I've got to get it. Good night to our listeners here. I really enjoyed Dr. Hines. Hey, bye.
Bye.
All right, take care, Dr. Hines.
Thank you. Dr. Vincent Adams here tonight with us on Politics 101, and our new co-host, Amiri, my grandson, who has been very eager to come on to Politics 101. He has to say hello to everybody.
Wow.
Hello. Right? And he doesn't say he's born in the United States. He doesn't say he's an American. He says he's a Guyanese.
I'm a Guyana.
You're Guyana. There you go. Let's go out with a little bit more of SNO.
Every day I keep praying, night and morning, that things got changed just to end this suffering. I hear Satan say has to be a bed, and who not mad say they rather dead. But living here, they find it is too damn dread. Some people turn big refugee. They say they can't live in the country. Gone to Canada, Brooklyn, Washington, D.C. But while they're blaming, I see more hard times coming. I see more problems facing me and we children. So answer more questions. Why? When you're looking at Parliament, you have to feel it's a movie that you rent. The behavior is so indecent. Would someone please tell me why? Every corner that I meet, I see single mothers on the street begging for something for the children to eat. And I hear that poor man's cry, how come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come our country's just going down, down, down? How come? Tell me, how come? Oh, how come this whole world just going down, down, down? How come? Stop this suffering. How come? Stop all this grunting. How come? Just tell me, how come? How come? Stop the promising. How come? Stop all the lying. How come? Just tell me, how come? How come? Let's join in unity to build back our country. How come? Just tell me, how come? How come? How come? Oh, how come? Just tell me, how come? Good night, Grenada.
Oh, yes. So I'll see you all tomorrow night. I'm gonna do a program tomorrow night. We were on last Saturday, so tomorrow night I'm gonna come on. So until tomorrow night, bye bye. And remember, I love you all. I love you all so much.
And like and subscribe.
Yes, and give them. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. All right. Amiri says good night too. And tomorrow night we will see you. Thank Dr. Adams for coming through tonight. There you go. And we're gonna see you tomorrow night.